everyone. I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One on One. Wilmington native Carli Batson has worn a lot of crowns in her 23 years. She was Miss Wilmington in 2018, Miss Greater Sampson County in 2019, Miss Cleveland in 2020, and finally Miss North Carolina in 2021. That's a lot of success for someone who didn't get into pageant life until her teenage years. Well, now Carli Batson is getting ready to wear another crown as Queen of the 2023 North Carolina Azalea Festival. Carli Batson, welcome to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast.
Hi there, John. Thanks so much for having me. This is a remarkable experience, and I'm just so grateful to be involved once again this year in the Azalea Festival and in such an incredible role this year.
Tell me what your reaction was when you got the call or the email telling you that they wanted you to be queen in 2023.
So it was even better than a call or an email. Denise Saloki, our president this year for the Azalea Festival, she actually invited me to coffee. And we went over to a local favorite, Port City Java, which is definitely my favorite coffee spot. No shame to Starbucks, but we sat down and she asked me about, if I wanted to be involved in the festival this year and if I had time to be involved in the festival this year. And I told her that in any capacity, I wanted to be in and around the Azalea Festival. And that's when she asked me if maybe that could possibly be as her queen. And I just almost leapt to my feet inside of the Port City Java. I was just so excited and so grateful to be asked to be in this role and to have the opportunity to talk to my community and share what I love about not only Wilmington, but especially the North Carolina Azalea Festival and all of its 76 years.
Why does it mean so much to you, Carli? I know you're a Wilmington native. I know you were part of the Princess Court, part of the Queen's Court. But why does it mean so much to Carli?
So, the Azalea Festival has been a part of my life since I can remember. I was just having a conversation with Allison here at the office, and we were discussing how as a little girl, I remember going over to the Bell South Towers with my grandfather back when the Azalea Festival used to have fireworks at night. And we would sit on the roof of the Bell South Tower building and watch the fireworks. And, I was front row and at the street side of the parade. So from being a little girl on the side of the street watching the parade to being, on a float and being a part of the parade and in such a special part of the parade this year and in the past couple years of my life is just absolutely remarkable. And to be able to really get on that level of the children that come out to events like that and, to tell them my story and how, I'm just like you. I didn't come from, a blue or a white collar family, or I wasn't a member of the country club, but I just grew up on Gordon Road, and I was involved in the festival in the ways that they are. And to be where I am now and to have this experience in such a more broad way and have the opportunity to speak to children and make them see that anything that they want to do is possible and any dream that they have is reachable is really, really important to me. And I'm just glad to be that representative for our community in Wilmington, and especially for the young folks. I see a lot of them, or a lot of me in them.
You've been a part of a lot of pageant competitions, obviously Princess Court, Queen's Court. You were Miss Greater Sampson County, Miss Cleveland, Miss Wilmington, then Miss North Carolina. How did you get involved in, let's call it pageant life? How did you get introduced to it?
So kind of in a non-traditional way. I was not involved in pageantry as a young girl. I think a lot of women that enjoy pageantry, they start this process at such a young age. And unfortunately in that, I feel like some women get burnt out from it and they aren't able to, I guess, redeem the benefits of pageantry. So I'm really grateful that I didn't start pageantry until I was much older, but I grew up as a dancer. I started taking dance classes at Just Duet, if anyone remembers that studio in town, for a little while. Then I hopped over to A Leap Above, and then one of the dance teachers from that studio decided to open up her own studio with another woman, and I danced at a dance studio called Impulse Dance Project for about 6 years, and then my father became unemployed. And at that time, it was just super clear that sacrifices had to be made for every member of our family. And for me, that sacrifice was my competitive dance training. So the years of studying, the years of, heart and soul that I'd poured into that art craft, and even, studying all the way in New York City at the Joffrey School of Ballet was something that I adored to do and enjoyed so much, but it just wasn't financially feasible for us anymore. And that was heartbreaking. And I thought that kind of my role on stage and my opportunity to be on a stage and perform and to do what I love to do was not going to be able to be, or wasn't available to me anymore.
Right.
Which was really sad. But the good thing, and one of the most amazing things I think about our community, is the theater community we have here, the people that we have here in our community that scooped me up, welcomed me into that space and into that organization. And I started performing with Opera House Theater Company around 2014. And since then, they've put me on a stage where I can do what I love. I'm up there singing and dancing and all that jazz, literally. But during some of those theater shows, I actually met an individual that you may know. His name's Jeff Phillips. We went from a mentoring kind of relationship to now him being one of my very, very best friends. And he saw me one day in rehearsal, and he came up to me and he said, "Have you ever done a pageant?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, would you like to do a pageant?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, I really think you should look into it. Go check it out." So I went home that night, did a little Google search, and found out that the Miss North Carolina organization, much like the Azalea Festival Princess Pageant, is one of the largest scholarship opportunities for women in not only this state, but in this nation. And that was really, really important to me and really impressive for me to see. So kind of dove in a little bit more into that organization, found out that Miss Wilmington was happening, and I still had the eligibility to sign up to do that, and kind of jumped in head first. Competed for the first time for Miss Wilmington, was crowned Miss Wilmington that night, completely shocked, completely blown away. And actually, Victoria Huggins was emceeing that night, and she tapped me on the shoulder and she said, "You do know what this means?" And I said, "Not really." And she said, "You're going to Miss North Carolina." And I was just kind of overwhelmed by all of it, and everything was happening so fast. But I was excited because I had just won $1,000 in scholarship money. So moving forward that summer, we went to Miss North Carolina, and I was the youngest candidate or contestant in Miss North Carolina history to walk away with 2 preliminary wins, both in the talent competition and then the swimsuit and fitness competition. So that was kind of that pat on the back that I needed to say, "Hey, you might not be too bad at this. This might be something for you." And I think that was really important for me to see, in my educational journey and in my collegiate journey at the time. It seemed like the scholarship opportunities to people my age were mainly educational or very athletic. You were either on a full ride scholarship for softball or volleyball, or because you had a striking SAT score.
Right.
And I don't play sports, and I'm not too bad at school, but my SAT and my ACT scores were not the most impressive, to just say the least. So I really felt like this was an outlet where I could shine and I could be, rewarded for the hard work that it takes to do something like a pageant. Right. Moving forward, I decided to compete again the next year for Miss Greater Sampson County. I won that local title, went back to Miss North Carolina that summer, and was awarded second runner-up. So at this time, I'm like, okay, this is really something I want to do. I had racked up even more money in scholarship from the local competitions and the state competitions those summers. And that's the first time I really sat back and said, I really think I want to be Miss North Carolina. I really want to do this for real. And then our world and our lives changed by the pandemic.
Right.
And all of a sudden I had a lot of extra time to work on becoming Miss North Carolina. So it was kind of a victory march in June of 2021 when finally, not only was I crowned Miss North Carolina after, being Miss Cleveland, a local title for the past 2 years, but for really sitting back and taking the time that I needed to focus on myself, my studies, and what it really took to become the best me I could be, and how to present that to, the judges or the auditorium, or, my fellow candidates, and all there is to do with that. So that was really a hard time for everyone, but I think a time that, if we can try and find a silver lining, I think we all kind of needed that kind of time to take a step back, and reevaluate and reassess. And I know that benefited me that summer. And when I was crowned Miss North Carolina, I actually was able to compete at the 100th anniversary of Miss America,
Right.
which was one of the best experiences of my entire life. I really think it was a God wink that was the specific year that I won and got to experience that, because celebrating 100 years of anything is exciting, but celebrating 100 years of an organization that supports women and supports women in their education and provided so much to me when I thought that, simply I couldn't, dance on stage anymore. And here I am as a debt-free college graduate at the age of 22.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. And just the way the pageants have impacted many, many of my peers that I've met along the way is incredible. But I really feel a special connection, and love. Obviously, I've been talking for like 10 minutes, but I love.
No, I mean, a lot of people think that pageants are just beauty. Whoever looks best in a gown, whoever looks best in a swimsuit. Why is that an incorrect view of the pageant world?
So logistically, I'll tell you, when you look at the score sheet of a pageant, your gown, 15%, your fitness, 10%, but your private interview counts for 50%. So if you're looking at it numerically and you're looking at it from how do I get the most points and how do I get the most points to win this competition, you win the competition in the interview room. And I think that's where the most growth for me happened through pageantry, for sure, was how do I communicate? How do I present myself to, young businesswomen, young businessmen, old businesswomen, old businessmen, people that I admire and the people that I respect and look up to. How do I hold myself to that standard and be able to confidently walk into a room, sit down and tell them who I am, why I want to be here and what I can do for this organization. And I think that's a skill set that everybody should have, but especially young women going into the workforce, going into business, or quite anything.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking on stage, learning those tools to control an audience, not control an audience, but kind of speak to an audience and have that demeanor of listen to me and pay attention to me. When I used to wear the sparkly hat, I love to say that it was like my microphone, because I can just be Carli and go down to Walmart and buy something off the rack. But if I'm wearing my sparkly hat, you might turn your head and look twice. So it might not be about the beauty, and it might not be about the crown, and it might not be about these things that we see physically. But if it makes you turn your head and it makes you perk your ears up a little bit, you might hear what I have to say. And I think that's what's really important and really exciting about pageantry in general, is that opportunity to amplify women's voices and make people stop and listen.
Was there a point that you can remember that you had been through, Miss Wilmington, you'd been through the Azalea Princess pageant, you'd been through the Azalea Queen, the pageants. Was there a point where Carli went from, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be a winner, to I've got this? When was the confidence level go from one to the other?
I think so. I think in that time that I was forced to sit back the year before I won Miss North Carolina during the pandemic, I did a lot of soul searching. And I realized that if you're looking to your right and you're looking to your left and you're trying to keep up with everyone around you and you're in this comparison mode and your thought process, you don't have any time to look forward. You have no time to push and reach the goal that you're trying to reach. So as soon as I was able to click into that mode of, it doesn't matter what she's doing, it doesn't matter that She is a 4.0 GPA at Harvard Law. You know, that's incredible for her, and we can support her and clap for her and jump up and down. But let's stop comparing ourselves to what we see around us, and how can Carli be better? And, you know, how can she move mountains for herself? How can she break the chain of generational financial disparity? And it was jumping into something that I was uncomfortable with, and maybe not 100% prepared for, but gave me that challenge and gave me the opportunity to show the world, but most importantly myself, that I can do this and I belong in the room where it happens, and I, you know, deserve the opportunity to be listened to and to speak, and also have the responsibility, on the other end of that, to show young women and, especially young girls, that they have that just as much. And if they just reach for it and just push hard and keep their focus straightforward, and really work on themselves, that they can do whatever they want to do and they can reach whatever dream they want to reach.
You went to college at App State, and
Yeah.
you wore some crowns while you were there. So your college experience may be unlike a lot of other young men, young women going to college.
For sure.
Wearing a crown and having the responsibility of not letting down whatever organization is that presented you with that crown,
For
while
sure.
you're at a time when, let's face it, some people let loose. Some
Absolutely.
people go to parties, post partying pictures and all that other kind of stuff. How did that impact your college experience? Do you think maybe you got cheated a little bit, or did it actually improve and make your college experience better than it may have been?
You know, it's interesting because I remember sometimes I would be like, oh man, I really wish that, you know, I wasn't at this event this week because it's my friend's 21st birthday. Or man, I really wish that I didn't have to be at this thing because there's a football game on Saturday and I was on the dance team. So that meant a lot to me. But I also remember, mostly in hindsight, but even at the time, thinking, how lucky am I to have already at such a young age the filters and the blinders that my mom and the women in my life before me have talked about, that they wish they would have had, back in the day. Like, I won't say that I didn't have fun in college. I had
Right.
lots of
No,
fun.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, you know, that mantle, I would imagine, may have been a little heavy at times.
Absolutely, but I think in hindsight, it made it a better experience for me because I knew who my true friends were from the beginning.
Hmm.
I wasn't going to the frat parties where there was a billion people in the room and I couldn't trust anyone. I was going over to my teammate's house where the phones got put away, there wasn't anyone recording, and we'd hang out and let loose and do what any other college kid would do, but it was in a safe and controlled environment where I was around people that I knew I could trust.
Right.
And I think I was just really lucky to understand the importance of that at a young age. I don't think it's, I don't, someone told me something one day that was really impactful to me. And it was, the person that's going to try and expose you or you know, put your picture on the internet and make a mockery of you. It's not the random person in the bar that doesn't know you. It's the person that you think is your friend that's trying to come for your joy and come from your happiness and come for your success.
Yeah.
So to learn that lesson, sometimes in the hard way, of who your true friends are and who's going to stick up for you and who's going to have your best interest in mind, no matter what, is an invaluable lesson to me. And I would take that and having that knowledge over any college party any day. But I will say we had lots of fun at my friend Mackenzie's house.
Okay, well, we'll do another episode of the podcast and get into that later. How's that?
Sure.
When 2019 Miss USA Chesley Chris took her own life, it brought a lot of attention to the world of mental health and depression. But from the outside, it appears to a lot of us that it really may have hit the pageant industry hard. What was it like in the inside of the pageant world? Did it impact that life?
It did. I was Miss North Carolina when she passed away, and I remember being just so unbelievably heartbroken. And this was a woman that I had never met face to face, but we had had many conversations through Instagram and Facebook and social media, because in a lot of ways in the pageant world, that's how we kind of communicated is through those posts. But I also think with social media and what Chesley kind of proved to the world is that it can be very kind of misleading in a way, when you're just posting the best parts of your day, or when you're just posting the things that the world thinks is okay and approves of. But that's not really what we really wanted to see from Chesley. I think we wish we could have known more of her struggle, because then we maybe hopefully would have been more eager to help her, and maybe she would have been more comfortable asking for that help that she needed. So I think in her passing, if anything, it was more of a wake-up call, not just for me, but for the pageant community as a whole, to be more transparent and to break down those walls and to become more raw and more real and honest with our experiences. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. And it's hard to be in the public eye and to, meet those expectations, like you were saying earlier, of so many and so many wonderful people that have given you such a rare set of opportunities and standards to uphold. It's a lot of pressure. And I think it's okay to say that out loud. And I wish we would feel more comfortable in doing that. So I respect Chesley, and I know that we miss her dearly. She was such a bright light, and such an anchor for our pageant community. She really was the just epitome of someone that made you look twice at pageantry and made you think, well, maybe it's not just about pretty gowns, because she was intelligent, and she was talented, and she was a rock star for women of color, and being someone that walked on stage with her natural curls and her natural beauty, and won that thing. So we miss her every day, and I respect and love her dearly. But I think in her passing, if there is a silver lining to that, is that it's time to wake up, and it's time to be more real and more raw, and not be so afraid to ask for help, and not be so afraid to give that help to those who need it, and especially those who might seem the strongest and the most prepared for life.
You're a first generation college graduate, and you won $22,000 in scholarships through the Miss North Carolina crown. I don't think a lot of people realize that that's one benefit. When you actually put that crown down, or when you turned it over, how were you better after than you were before?
That's a great question. I think when I crowned Carolyn Martin, who's your Miss North Carolina 2022, and she will be at the Azalea Festival, and I'm sure she'd be happy to meet you all. She actually is an Appalachian State grad herself. But the day after, I remember finally feeling like I could breathe, but even more so that I could finally receive the benefits of the work that I had done for the past year. I know I was in my senior year of college when I was Miss North Carolina. I was co-captain of the dance team. I was working a part-time job. I was doing it all, and I was working so hard to be at every event and be the best Carli and the best Miss North Carolina I could be for our great state. That when I finally did put the crown down and pass that over to Carolyn, it was finally that moment to sit back and say, wow, you graduated last month.
Yeah.
Because at the time it sounds crazy, but in my planner it said, parade and meet and greet, graduate, photo shoot. So it was just another checkbox at the moment. So when it was finally time to release that title and give that over to the next woman, I was kind of overwhelmed by the feeling of gratitude and grace, but also in the same time, kind of that reflection of all that I had done that past year. And I was proud of me. It was really the first time in my life that I sat back and said, you know, you did that. You survived, number one, but you proved to yourself and you proved to everyone else that said that you couldn't do it, that you could. And some days were hard, and it wasn't sunshine and rainbows all the time, but you did that, and what a reward it is to sit back and feel the comfort of being, you know, financial or not financially dependent any longer on student loan debt, and having those kind of those pillars in my life. And wow, what connections I've made across the state and even beyond. I mean, I have a friend in every 50 states, including the District of Columbia now.
Right.
So if I wanted to go to, you know, South Carolina, I could call her up. If I wanted to go to New York, I'd give Sydney a call. And I just think that is unexplainable in the amount of comfort I felt after I gave the crown to Carolyn at, you know, what I had done that last year, how proud I was of myself, but also in the fact that this is going to mean so much for the rest of my life. And I can use this for the rest of my life.
But was there also that daunting prospect of, uh-oh, what am I going to do now?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And I was really, I think, I'd like to say I was very thoughtful about it. I knew that jumping into something immediately wouldn't be the best thing for my mental health or my physical health at the time. So I kind of gave myself the entire, you know, rest of the summer and into Christmas to settle and relax. I worked a part-time job at Zia Boutique in the Forum. Shout out to Zell Brown Wiggins if she is listening or watching this. She was the most fantastic boss. I had so much fun working there. We knew going in that it wasn't going to be a forever thing for me. I'm still there some Saturdays though, because I just can't let it go. But I gave myself that time to breathe. I gave myself that time to think, what did I want to do next? Where did I want to go? And surprisingly, it's led me to a little elementary school up in Porter's Neck. I'm working at American Leadership Academy as their elementary receptionist. And I never thought that I'd be in a school system, especially in elementary school and a charter school at that. But being around those kids and being the first face they see when they walk in the door in the morning is a role that I really feel like I was made for. And that might not be a forever thing either, but at least for right now, I really enjoy it. And being involved in the education system comes with some great benefits too.
I know you're going to enjoy the living daylights out of the Azalea Festival, but when you look past that, when Carli looks at her life in 5 to 10 years, what do you see? What would you like to be doing?
You know, I'm a simple woman at heart. I want to do so much, and I want to experience all the things I can. But eventually my dream goal is to settle right here in Wilmington, raise a beautiful family, be loved by many and love so many, and impact as many young lives that I can, just to enhance that level of gratitude and selflessness that I feel for all that I was given during this past 5 years of my life. You know, I was not prepared for this. I wasn't going after this for myself, but I was sheltered and helped by so many that just took a little time out of their day to look at me and say, you have potential and you can be whatever you want to be. And I want to be that person for young women and young girls moving forward.
Well, I know Keith and Lisa Batson are very proud of their daughter. Former Miss Wilmington, former Miss North Carolina, Carli Batson, soon to wear the crown of Queen Azalea 2023. Carli, thanks for taking the time. Congratulations. And we appreciate you being on the One-on-One with John Evans podcast.
Thank you so much, John. See you at the Azalea Festival.
A big thank you to Carli Batson for sparing time out of her busy schedule and joining us for this podcast interview. Her coronation as North Carolina Azalea Festival Queen happens Wednesday, April the 12th, and this year's festival runs through April 16th right here in Wilmington. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please download and follow the One-on-One with John Evans podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your favorite shows. And if you would be so kind, please leave us a rating or a review. We'd love to hear what you think of our interviews, and the more feedback we have from friends like you, the higher we'll be listed on those apps, and the better chance we'll have of bringing in more new listeners. I'm John Evans. Thanks for joining us for this episode of One-on-One.